Okay, I am thinking we are now live. So I'm just going to start. Hello, I'm Jane Frizzell. This is Office Hours for Basic Military Riding. There are a couple dozen people that have gone through the entire program and who are training the facts of riding as spelled out by the masters of the world. This is their office hours, but we decided to put it as a live stream for anyone to listen to. And we may have a caller today. I did mention it to someone I saw earlier. The topic today is the voice. I was like a couple of weeks ago. There's a South African dressage magazine. I'm pretty sure it's a dedicated dressage magazine. Had a post about the rule that the voice will get cost you points, and I thought it was elimination in the FEI or the USDF. So I should check that. But it was very clear to me from the comments and from the article that they didn't really understand what they didn't understand about the voice. So I'm going to try to explain it, even though I already have. And where I did already explain it is in class 105, which is on the 4 natural aids. And I'm almost certain that there is a video on this channel addressing this topic of the voice. And it is really important because too few people understand it. And it just needs to be understood so that the benefit of the aids that are heard, horses, the aids are divided into 2 groups. There's 4. Okay, first of all, there's 4 natural aids. You guys should all know this. Like, if you're not in our program and this is sounding unfamiliar or new, you should really fire your instructor, because this is extremely basic stuff. There are 4 natural aids that compose the language between the rider and the horse. Those 4 natural aids are known as, first of all, number 1, the voice. Number 2, the weight of the seat. Number 3, the leg. Number 4, the hand. So we have these 4 aids. The number one, the first one that the horse learns is the voice. The foal hears the farmer's voice. The voice is the very first interaction with the human. The sound is the first interaction with the human. So the voice is the first natural aid. These 4 aids are divided into 2 groups. Those that are heard, so number 1, and the other 3. Okay, I think this is our caller. Yes. Hi there. No, I'm going to put you on speakerphone. I'm just talking about, I'll just brief you for 20 seconds and then please join it. Please contribute to what I'm saying. Hang on. Try talking so we make sure you come through.
Yes, I'm here.
So I'm talking to them about there's 4 natural aids. The voice is the first one. It's voice, seat, leg, hand. They're divided into 2 groups, those that are heard and those that are felt. And that the horse is taught the language of the aids. This part I didn't get to yet. Through the law of association of sensations, and interested people can find that in section 27 of Somer 1912 or Fort Riley 1935. And also there's a great explanation about the voice in Complete Training of the Horse and Rider by Podolsky, and he would know, starting on page 54 and 55. The other thing I want to add that I started off saying is that the voice is not allowed in competition, but that doesn't mean it's not allowed in training. However, we shouldn't be obnoxious with our voice. And one of the main uses of the voice is for associating the other aids. So if they learn the voice first being lunged, then when they're starting to be ridden, canter, The word canter on the lunge line means inside weight, vanish, inside rein in riding. Does that compute?
Yeah, I think the way you explained it, the association.
Yes.
I know when I was, learning to ride and growing up riding, I was always told you can't use the voice, like you said, and that was for competition.
Yes.
So then when I started using the voice, I'm trying to get people to use the voice.
Yes.
People weren't comfortable. It's almost like they don't want to hear themselves.
Yes, because they were forbade to use the voice.
Yeah, the voice can, like, if I'm working with a beginner rider and I have the horse off my voice aids, I can almost ride the horse from the ground, which could be a safety mechanism.
Very, very much so. Yes. Yes.
That I could have the horse on my voice aids. Now, I guess that being said is, what if I use the voice and then if I don't double check if the rest of my aids work, I could get overly reliant on the voice. Is that possible?
That is exactly well said, and the most important thing. So that we have to use the voice in the context of the language of the aids, but to not use the voice would be denying ourselves and our horse a really important tool in being able to understand and communicate with the aids that are felt, because the voice aid can explain them.
Yes, that makes sense. I think a valuable lesson that I had, I think it was when I got a newer horse in, you told me just to start from the beginning, go put them in the round pen and see what they knew.
Yes.
And that would be obviously my body language as well.
Yeah.
But did they know anything about the voice aids? And that's like a starting place. So I think
yes,
understanding how it can lead you to figure out what the horse knows and start with the basic, all the aids, and run through the list. And I think the voice is
yes,
something that I think a lot of people don't use.
Yes, the voice
or worry about using.
It's the first aid the horse ever learned in his life. And so we don't rely on it completely, but the point that but we should keep it alive. It's like, you know how you learn the alphabet song when you were little and you still sing it if you have to alphabetize something?
Yeah, I do still.
Yeah, I do too. It's kind of like a LMNO. It's kind of the same thing as that. We want to keep it still in the horse's mind. And when it really comes in handy is when we start wanting to reduce the physical aids so that they become more soft and more internal. And let's say we're really reducing a physical aid, like our leg, and the horse is like, did you just use your leg? And I can click at him and say, yeah, I did. And he'll go, okay. So then we can reduce the aid can become much softer, but have the same effect because he remembers that a click means get. Is that cogent how I said that?
I think that's a good point. I was just working with a type B horse and he was very behind my leg, lazy. And I had to say, get up. And then my get was like, yeah, get.
Right.
Where he believed me. And
correct.
then he believed me.
Yes.
Versus having to kick all the time and doling him out even more kicky.
Yes. So I can say, listen to the weight of the lace of my panties. That means get. And yes. So that is another very important use of the voice and is a very good reason to not let it go extinct. It should, a finished horse should be able to operate only on voice, only on seat, and probably only on hand, but saying that might get me tarred and feathered.
Is that why, I remember as a kid, I rode hunters and jumpers, and then I transitioned to some dressage, and I was hearing all the, all the noise.
Yep.
Under your breath. That's a voice aid, essentially, that somebody can't hear. Is that correct or no?
Well, it's on the down low, so it doesn't disturb other riders. And the German trill and also tends to cause the rider to soften and relax.
Yeah, the exhale. Yeah.
Yes, because it's an exhale. If you look at Harry, look through Harry Bolt's book next time you open it up and look at him, he's puffing his lips a lot. And yes, and then there's another really important use of the voice, and that is for praise.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all need to hear. And praise has to be, doesn't have to be like right away so they know. Like
it has to be exactly in the exact moment. And that is why the rider must know exactly what they're doing. And it has to be spontaneous and sincere. That's the main thing, is if you mean it. Yeah. So, and then, I think this might be worth saying for some people. So it is the case. I think we can get eliminated for using our voice. Maybe that's in the FEI. I'm not sure that it costs more than just some points, but that is in competition. We do use the voice in training. Sounds like someone's getting praised in the barn. Yes, I was just reiterating that the voice is illegal in competition, but not in training. And this is the point I wanted to make. So, and the reason why it's illegal in competition is because the judges want to see that the horse is advanced enough to operate from the aids that are felt. So we graduate the horse from the voice aid to the aids that are felt, but we reserve the voice aid for the future if we need it. Like, let's say we engage the horse so much in trot that he starts to pee off and he thinks, and we can feel his question mark, should I walk or do you want me to trot this small? And we can click and say, trot. So how can we get riders to use the voice aid? Walk, trot, canter, whoa, back, click.
Do the horses really hear? Is it the inclination and the tone? I've always thought that like
there is
downward transitions are down, upwards are canter. What? Is that true?
Well, I think that's I think that's for very babies, but the way I make them is I make it be on the word with no intonation, that the word means what the word means, that I don't help them out with an uplifting tone. I say walk, trot, canter, because I expect them, it's a language and I expect them to know the language. Now, if it's a little kid, just as if it was a little human child, you would say, hold my, you would use a tone to help them to add to the understanding of the word. Does that make sense? Yeah, I make them.
When you're pairing it with the physical, so like walk, you drop your weight, right? Walk.
Yep.
Or canter, vanish or rein. So you're pairing it with the seat and the weight aid to create the understanding, is what you're saying. So then they understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but I really do turn the language into a very impartial language of just words, no tone, although I do have love in my tone when it's praise. Otherwise, it's just information. It's information. It doesn't have a color. It's just information.
Well, I know some of the cowboy horses, you say whoa, and they're freaking stop on a dime.
Yep. It could be very safe. Oh, here's another thing, just as a thing to add in. I teach them to back from my voice, starting with their outside shoulder, absolutely straight back. And that has actually saved me. One time I had a huge horse caught in between two paddock fences that were very narrow, like as narrow as one side of a 2-horse. And he knew, I had already taught him that if I say the word back, that he should back exactly straight from wherever he is. And yes, and my horses also sometimes get in the feed room, which is a very narrow doorway. And I can just say back and they will go straight backwards just from my voice. And that's a good idea to have for if you're shipping horses too.
Yeah, that's actually really good.
Yeah.
Never tried that.
Yeah. And that they don't try to turn themselves. When I teach them back, it's just straight back. And then of course that comes in handy when you get to, I think is it second or third level that you have to do rein back? What do you mean you have
and
to
I think what you said too is also like where you don't overuse it, because then it's like, then I'm like, trot, trot, trot.
No. Oh, that's a really good point. So if I say the C word for canter and they don't do it, they get kicked.
Yeah.
It's one time. The word means what it means. Me saying it 3 times doesn't, that ruins the word.
So if you have a type B horse and you do a transition, you do like, oh, you want to go upward. So you ask for the upward transition to trot, and they don't do it. First time, ask nicely. So then you amplify, whatever, crack them. Then tell me that process, then you replace it with a click.
Oh, okay. So if I opened my seat and rode forward from my solar plexus, or however people want to describe it, I ride forward to the front of my glass, that act right there, opening my seat, would cause my lower leg to get a little nearer the girth. That horse should go forward. If he doesn't, I give him, he gets a click so fast. And if that doesn't work, that balloon got popped by both legs at the girth one time super hard. So the click is his last chance if he fails to follow my forward riding aids from my seat. Is that helpful?
Right. Yes.
And it's one click. It's only
said,
one.
If you did it over and over, you could, to where you did a downward, like a click before the downward.
Correct.
Their hind legs quick instead of slowing down.
Exactly right. And I think I've even talked to you about, I'm wanting to get these transitions nearer to each other. So they have to mean what they mean. And the voice is very helpful in getting activity in there quick without added physical effort, which can tend to confuse. Like, I don't want to work harder to get more activity.
Yeah, I think that's a hard one, right? Because especially on a type B horse, that you end up getting so busy.
Yeah.
Versus the horse actually doing the work.
Yeah. So the thing with that type of horse is you have to keep things very impartial and the meaning absolutely clear. Walk is walk, and trot is trot, and canter is canter. And for those types of things, trot, it means now. It is not think about it. Like if they hear that, boom. Do you remember in that warm-up video with Zanny at the very beginning? He was a very shut down horse. The very beginning, I push my reins at him and I say trot, and his hind end just goes. Do you remember? It's just very fast. And that's, I think, what's hard for people to understand what we're talking about, is because it's now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's the instantaneous, the impartial information, making it not so reflective. I think people oftentimes today, with all the feeling nature of people, well, me, feel, I, me, instead of just the simpleness of transition.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a hard one to get, especially beginner riders, out of, because they want to self-reflect that they did something wrong. Maybe they did,
but then that's for the instructor to say, okay, we're going to repeat that. It's for the instructor to point out, I did not speak on a horse. I want to say I was probably 30 years old. I never spoke in a lesson ever, unless I was spoken to.
Okay, yes, I'm trying, I'm working on it. And in that moment, I'm working on it.
Oh, it's already, that's failure already. There's no, I'm working on it.
I agree.
Yeah, I don't know how to impart that, but well, I do, but I had and now we're not talking about the voice edit anymore. Now we're talking about talking. I had a revelation about, I think it was in 2008 that I had this revelation. And I was teaching this woman, and she talked more in one 45-minute lesson than I spoke in 45 years of my own lessons. I never spoke.
Yeah.
I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I cried once in 45 years. And guess what the instructor did when I cried?
I don't know, didn't care.
I didn't do anything. He had to have seen me cry. I was like tears going down my face. Never mentioned the next, never. It was like it never happened.
Yeah. So the voice as an aid is an aid. Then we're talking, we digress a little bit into talking and over chatting.
Yeah.
What about talking the horse through something? Narrating your ride.
Yes. Well, I like
narrating your training.
I do that when I'm riding young or green horses, clueless horses, because it keeps me on track. And I also ask students to do it because then I know exactly what the thought process is. And it also helps people to realize we're supposed to be telling the horse stuff. So tell the horse. And I just find it is a clarifying, sort of a teaching tool in a way.
Yeah, it's a good teaching tool because I do believe if you ask somebody to narrate what they're doing,
right,
then you're seeing in their process and their steps that they're taking.
Exactly right.
Required skill.
Yes, and they narrate and see. And when I'm on a young horse or a horse I don't trust, especially, which hopefully I'll never be on one like that again, I talk out what I'm doing because it keeps me in what's going on instead of my mind going out somewhere, because it's easy. And that's what a young horse does, is they haven't learned to concentrate yet.
Okay.
So yeah, we can use our voice can be very helpful, and we have to understand its use inside the language, the equestrian language, which are the 4 natural aids, and how it can substitute or explain the aids that are felt. And but I think this is very important, and probably you'll get some pushback, but this is what the masters tell us. It is the first aid. It is the first of the natural aids the horse ever learns. So it's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's definite value in, especially like you said, when you're trying to understand a new horse that comes into your program.
Yeah.
Where they're at.
Yeah.
Starting at the beginning.
Yep.
Really solidifying, going through each aid and understanding what they know. If somebody mush it all together,
yep,
they know the separation of the aid.
That's right.
And then also to help teaching, because I can ride through people sometimes with my voice and get out of trouble.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
With my voice.
Yes.
So I think it's a very valuable. We sometimes ground drive and do things in the line.
Yep.
And you need your voice.
And you need the click. Too. You need the click and the brr. Yep. You know, I think this is fair. I think this is safe to say that a well-started horse knows a click before he ever feels a leg. I wonder what does Phyllis say about that in that close work chapter? Does he have any mention of clicks in there? Or voice? I have to go look.
I mean, it talks about the instantaneous moment that you go forward is a make or break situation.
Yeah, the decisive moment on which the
decisive moment.
Yeah.
Yes. Whether they're going with you or whether they run past you or they're with you.
Yeah, or lag behind.
Yeah.
And that's the decisive. I think that's so important. And that goes back to something you said, is that it is so instantaneous. And that's why these things need to be explained up front. And it concerns me. I started off the discussion before you phoned because I had seen a South African competition magazine talking about you'll get faults if you talk, but it didn't tell the whole story well enough. And I think it's important.
That makes sense. This is not really about the voice aids, but that idea of that instantaneous, like you said, I open my seat, and by opening my seat, my calf comes on.
Right.
So by my calf comes on and me taking myself forward, the horse goes to that. But I see a lot of gathering up, holding in the leg, and that's that backwards stuff, which isn't that instantaneous. So that's probably another topic, but that's in front of the leg or forward.
Yeah, like when is that? Oh, it's now. It's like we're not fast enough. Now is already big, like we already missed now if we even say that word. It's now, it's go. Because I think this is important, and Podolsky, which is what I recommended everyone to take a look at pages 54 and 55, is that the end game, like one of the end results we want, is that the horse and rider achieve the quality known as Durchlässigkeit, which is when the rider has the thought and the horse executes the thought. The rider thinks it, the horse does it. And so if there's a little bit of talking to explain the thought, like, am I really telepathic? Yeah, you are, Git. You know what I mean? Kind of like that.
Good example. All right, well, that was helpful. I think it's definitely especially a good topic, and I think teaching, I don't know where teaching is going in this world, but it feels like there's just a lot of what people, let's do this, let's do that, instead of really studying the rules that have been written about for a long time and really going back to the basics.
Yeah, the forward riding system has been documented very clearly. We have very clear directives that we can follow, and they really work. And the other things only just kind of make things into problems.
Yes.
Well, I know you're convinced. I am going to, I'll put some links of stuff that we might have mentioned in the description box below, and see you next week.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, bye.